All right, I am back with another Colleen Hoover video for you guys. I just recently finished the Slam series, which is actually, I think, her very first series that she ever wrote. And I am coming in to tell you which book I like the most, which one I like the least, and how I felt about the overall series. All right, so I'm going to start this off with the fact that there are some huge spoilers in this. I'm going to go through a review of the series itself, book by book, but you are going to definitely get some spoilers in these reviews. So if you haven't read the series and you want to read the series, then don't watch any further because I might spoil some things for you guys. I'm ready to get started on that and can't wait for you guys to see what I thought about the books. In the very first book in the series, Slammed, I really liked the beginning with it being set up, how Laken moves to a new town, new city, new state, and she basically doesn't want to be there. She's not happy to be there. Her father just died, but she meets her next door neighbor, Will, and she's suddenly starting to feel okay with the move. Now, Will takes her basically to a slam poetry night, which is so cool because that's such a unique idea to put into a book. I've been to a couple myself, and it's really cool that it was included because not a lot of people are into poetry, but I really, really enjoy it. So I really like that. I love that Will loved poetry, and the novel progresses from there. And then, of course, you find out that, oh shit, Will is Laken's teacher. So yeah, I remember when this was a whole craze in storytelling where it's the high school student and the teacher who's close to the high school student's age and they fall in love. Kind of grosses me out, to be honest. But I went with it for the book and it wasn't super bad, and they really kept it as professional really as possible throughout this book, mostly. But just to start, this definitely, the series has the least spice of all Colleen Hoover books. You really don't get any scenes where they're steamy or anything like that. So if you want something that's a little more wholesome, but you still have the teacher-student relationship, it's weird. You can go for Slammed because Slam doesn't have as graphic depictions of their romance. Anyway, you basically find out in the end, I'm going to do like a short little recap, but you basically find out at the end that Laken's mom, the reason they moved is because Laken's mom has cancer. And so Will lost his parents in a car accident and he's raising his little brother. And now Laken's going to raise her little brother when her mom dies of cancer. And I just felt it was too much of a coincidence for me. It was really weird because they're both going to end up doing the same thing and having the same lifestyle. It felt too convenient for the characters to be so similar and to be able to fall in love like that. The other thing that felt super convenient that I really didn't like was the fact that when Javi was forcing Laken to kiss him, Will just beat him up without knowing that Javi was forcing Laken to kiss him, and then was able to keep his job and his professionalism but move to a different school. Everything worked out kind of picture perfect in those moments, and I really didn't like that about the book. The romance, of course, was great. The only thing I really had an issue with the characters was like, Will was great. Will was very mature, but Laken was so immature. And I get that she's a teenager, but I really didn't like it. She had no empathy for Will and his situation. She just wanted him to figure out a way to keep up their romance without them having to be apart because he's her teacher. It was weird. So I didn't like a lot about Laken because of that. The other thing, I did like Kel and Will's brother, but I can't remember his name for the life of me. But I really liked They had a lot of comic relief. It was really great. I especially liked when they made their Halloween costumes with their mom. It was super sweet, or with Kel's mom. But other than that, the mom and Will were probably my favorite characters. The writing itself, you can definitely tell this is Colleen Hoover's first novel, so don't go into it expecting it ends with us and then reading Slammed, because you're going to be disappointed. That's just how it is. But I knew this was one of her first novels, so I gave her a lot of leeway in that, because obviously you grow as a writer and as a person the more that you write. So yeah, overall, Slammed got 4 out of 5 stars for me, but it was probably closer to like 3.75 stars, I want to say, because it was definitely better than the ones that I've rated 3.5 stars and just rounded up to 4. but it's not as good as the ones that I rated 4 just because they were 4s, if that makes any sense at all. It's been a long week. Anyway, my favorite quote from Slammed was definitely this thing about you that you think is your flaw. It's the reason I'm falling in love with you. So I liked that quote the most, probably because we often pick out our own flaws and we think that they're these horrible things, but then other people see them and they don't see them as flaws. So I like that. That was a really good quote. Point of Retreat. I definitely didn't like Point of Retreat nearly as much as Slammed, and Point of Retreat actually fell really low for me in the ranking of my Colleen Hoover novels that I've read, and I'm getting close to reading all of them. I'm gonna get there. But Point of Retreat, it just felt unnecessary. She definitely could have ended things with Slammed, and it would have been fine. Because in Slammed, you get the closure at the end. You didn't need anything else. Point of Retreat was just going on to show how Will and Laken were adapting to their new roles and how Will and Laken were adapting to their romance since they are now allowed to be together. Basically, in Point of Retreat, it goes to Will's point of view, and Laken is raising Kel, and the thing that I really didn't like about this novel is that it felt like Will and Laken switched places. And what I mean by that is that Will became the immature one, Laken became the mature one, and it completely did a 180 from Slammed because Laken was immature and then Will was mature, but now it's like the complete opposites. And it felt like Colleen Hoover didn't know how to write from Will's point of view as being the mature one, so it was weird. The other things, I really didn't like the fact that there was this random accident in the novel because it just felt like it was there to make something happen in the book because not a lot happened. It was a short book and you really didn't get a lot of plot from it. And I also didn't like the fact that they got married at the end. It felt so rushed and strange and just kind of like, okay, we want to live in the same household. Yeah. No, I think it would have been better if Colleen Hoover focused on the fact that, hey, Laken almost died. Will and Laken know that they love each other. So why don't they just get married so that if anything ever happened to Laken, her little brother would be under Will's guardianship. It would have felt more real had they done that, but instead it focused more on the romance and the fact that it was such a fast, quick wedding thing. It threw me off. I didn't like it. So this one, very mediocre. I did not like it as much as Slammed, and so it was a solid 3 in rating. So yeah, that's where I felt for this novel. My favorite quote in Point of Retreat is, "Love is the most beautiful thing in the world. Unfortunately, it's also one of the hardest things in the world to hold on to, and one of the easiest things to throw away." And I really like this quote because it's so true. It's easier to get rid of hard feelings rather than to deal with them. And that happens a lot in relationships. Like you go through some tough times together and then it's easier to throw it away rather than try and fix it. So I really like that quote and I thought that that was a great quote to have. So obviously it's my favorite quote. For this girl, I really didn't like this book. So I talked about this a little bit when I did my video for the Hopeless series. I didn't like Losing Hope, and this girl was a lot like Losing Hope in that it was from Will's point of view, but he's basically telling Laken the story of how they got together from his point of view. And you don't get any new scenes. You get a few, maybe 1 or 2, but you don't get any really good new scenes from Will's point of view. You just see all of Will and all of Laken. The only thing that this book had going for it is that it alternated between the past and the present, and in the present you get scenes from their honeymoon. There was no tension in this novel. You don't get anything because everything already happened. You know what's going to happen. It's just from Will's point of view, and it felt like there was nothing new. I didn't like this novel at all. It took a lot for me to keep going through it because I just felt like nothing happened. Nothing happened. You get the honeymoon scenes. Yay. You get something from Will's point of view. It was boring, if I'm being completely honest. And if I added this to my tier ranking of Colleen Hoover novels, it's obviously above Layla, but below Point of Retreat. So I feel like I almost need a new tier for just this book because it's like right smack in the middle of those two, because I still hate Layla. Never liked Layla. Layla was my least favorite book from Colleen Hoover. And while this one sucked, it didn't suck for me as much as Layla did. So yeah, there it is. And my favorite quote from this girl was, "My sweet is that me and Kel are finally brothers. My suck is that I now know what Will and Laken did on their honeymoon." Obviously, I put that in there because I didn't see any sweet quotes that I really liked, any sentimental quotes. And obviously, comic relief from the little brothers is always the best. So yeah, that's my favorite quote. So yeah, obviously this is my least favorite series from Colleen Hoover, but it's her first series, so I'll give her some slack on that. She was growing as an author, and I did like Slammed. Just the 2 books after that were completely mediocre, and I didn't like them. Overall, I'd give this series a 3 out of 5. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it was horrible. I didn't want to read it, any of that. It just means that it was mediocre. It wasn't amazing. It's not a 5 out of 5 like It Ends With Us, but it wasn't horrible. So 3, mediocre. Read it if you want. Don't read it. You aren't going to miss out on too much. But yeah, so this is probably one of the shorter videos for me talking about a Colleen Hoover series just because I didn't like it that much. It was kind of sad, but you know, I had to check it off my list of Colleen Hoover novels to read, so obviously I read this series. And that's where it is. Slammed series gets solid 3 stars total. Best book was Slammed. The worst was This Girl. But yeah, let me know what you thought of the Slam series in the comments below. I would love to know if you liked the series and actually what you liked about it, or if you were like me and you really didn't like the series and what you didn't like about it. If you like this video, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I always post videos about Colleen Hoover books and books in general because I love reviewing novels. So yeah, go ahead, subscribe, leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you guys, and I'll see y'all later.